I'd like to pass to Emily, who is going to continue. Okay.
Thank you. So I'd just like to talk a little about what's actually going on our planet right now. So we are currently at 1.1 degrees warming above the pre-industrial temperatures. Now that may not sound much, but remember 1 degree or even a fraction of a degree is the difference between water and ice. 1 degree warming also has catastrophic impacts on our atmosphere and on our waters. It may not sound much, but if the air and the atmosphere warms just a little bit, we get far more likely to have extreme weather. That's because it interferes with what's called the jet stream, which is what controls our weather systems and our climate. Our weather systems controlled by our climate. The jet stream relies on the difference in temperature between the equators and the poles. The thing is, with this 1 degree warming, that's a global average, but the poles are getting much warmer than the equator, which means, they're warming at a higher rate than the equator, which means that the temperature difference now goes down and the jet stream no longer flows like it's supposed to. This causes changes to our weather systems and more likely extreme weather. It also causes, because of the higher temperatures above the oceans, even 1 degree causes an awful lot more water to evaporate from the oceans. The water in the air can also stay in the air to greater concentrations. Warm air can hold more water vapor than normal air. A result of this is that we get not just higher temperatures and heat waves, but we also get stronger and more frequent rainfall. We also get storms where that rainfall suddenly dumps all in one go. We get cyclones, we get droughts where we get the heat causing lack of rainfall. I just want to give you some examples of where we are right now. So in 2019, I'm sure you're aware, we saw record-breaking temperatures. We had 400 temperature records were broken across the globe. It was the warmest October on record, the joint warmest September on record. 19 of the hottest 20 years have been in the last 20 years. In July, we got the hottest ever day in the UK, and globally, July was the hottest day ever recorded across the planet. In France and the Netherlands, the record-breaking temperatures were estimated to have been made 100 times more likely because of climate change. In the UK, 20 times more likely. Now, this will just get worse. And as temperatures rise, remember, we heard that we're heading towards 1.5 degrees. The estimates now is that we're going to head to 1.5 degrees by 2040. And actually, some experts have said we're going to get there by 2030. This is not acceptable. We've been told we committed to the Paris Agreement to say that we have to stay below 2 degrees and absolutely have to try our best to stay below 1.5. At current projections, we're heading to 2 degrees, certainly by kind of 2060, 2070. But a lot of experts suggest we're actually heading to 2 degrees by 2045. So in terms of the heat wave, extreme heat waves are going to become an average European summer by 2040. And of course, that's much worse in countries such as the global south across the globe. We will get 350 million more people will be at risk of heat stress by 2050. We'll see a trebling of heat stress here in the UK, people dying from heat-related issues. As we move towards 2 degrees, there's going to be 37% more of the population who are exposed to severe heat waves. That's 420 million people being exposed to extreme heat waves across the globe, and 65 million more people than if we got to 1.5 degrees. If we get to 2 degrees, that's 65 million more people being exposed to exceptional heat. I just want to talk for a moment. I know I've got to hurry up. I've got to talk to a moment about storms. We all know India had the heaviest monsoon in 25 years last year, 1,600 dead. In Paraguay and Bolivia, 100,000 people left displaced from their homes because of flooding. In East Africa, there was the strongest dipole on record, which led to flooding that displaced hundreds of thousands of people in Somalia and southern Sudan, killing hundreds in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. Venice was hit by a storm that was the worst floods in 50 years, also because of rising sea levels. And here in Yorkshire, we had 1,000 properties evacuated, 500 homes flooded because of floods here in the UK. The estimates is that as global temperatures rise even to 1.5 or 2 degrees by 2050, floods that happened once every 100 years will now be happening once every other year. You heard about hurricanes in the Bahamas. A Category 5 hurricane was the most intense on record in 2019, leaving 70,000 homeless. Typhoon Haggis in Japan was the strongest in 6 decades. In Mozambique, Cyclone Idai was deemed one of the worst weather-related disasters to hit the southern hemisphere, resulting in 1,300 deaths. Hundreds of thousands of people were displaced. These are record-breaking extreme weather events. They would not be happening at nearly this much frequency or regularity if it wasn't for climate change, and the temperatures are going up. We're heading up towards 1.5, over 2 by 2050. If we look at droughts, I know I've got to stop and say a couple more things. If we look at droughts, this is really important. In Cape Town in 2018, there was a drought that led to the city becoming within days of having to turn off its water supply. These types of droughts are going to be happening at least 3 times more likely, or up to 9 times more likely if we hit just 2 degrees. In Zimbabwe in 2019, they had the lowest rainfall in the last 30 years, causing severe droughts, pushing 5.5 million people into extreme water scarcity and food insecurity. If we get to 2 degrees, 50% more people, because of climate change, will be suffering from water stress. Up to 200 million people will be suffering from increased water scarcity just by going from here to 2 degrees. And then we also have to look at the economy. We have to look at poverty. If we get to 2 degrees, several hundred million more people around the world will be exposed to climate-related poverty. There'll be more incidences of malaria and dengue fever because of increasing temperatures, making them more likely to be transmitted. The coral reefs are going to be pretty much gone if we get to 2 degrees, 70 to 80% gone even if we get to 1.5 degrees. Sea level rise, huge issue, particularly for countries in parts of Asia and in parts of Northern Africa. If we even just get to 2 degrees temperature rise, we're looking at a 10 centimetre increase in sea level, maybe 20 centimetres in some parts of the world. That's going to we're looking at 10.4 million more people exposed to flooding risks. By 2050, there will be 300 million people in parts of the world that are going to be flooded at least once a year. That is 300 million people who are going to have to move to be displaced because of flooding risks. So we're also looking at huge impacts on our economy, but who cares? There's far more important issues at stake here.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to start with the